Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, and let yourself be carried away by a story from the Middle Ages. Welcome to our channel. Tonight, we travel back in time. The hour is turning, and you are here, anchored by the weight of the stone and the pull of the river. It is the time of night when the village has long since surrendered to sleep, their breaths rhythmic and soft behind stone walls. Yet you remain awake, a silent guardian of the grain. The air inside the mill is thick and cool, a heavy blanket of stillness that smells of damp oak, ancient river water, and the dry, earthy sweetness of crushed rye. You stand with your back to the great timber wall, feeling the tremor of the earth beneath your boots, a low, constant hum that begins in the deep bed of the river and rises through the foundations of the mill. The world is quiet, and you are safe within the rhythm of the wheel. You reach out and rest your palm against the grain chute, the wood worn to a silk-like smoothness by generations of your family's hands. The vibration here is more pronounced, a steady, pulsing life force that tells you the waterwheel is finding its pace in the dark current outside. Through the small, shuttered window, a sliver of moonlight falls across the floor, painting a pale, silvery path over the floorboards. The light catches the fine dust of flour that hangs suspended in the air, making the atmosphere appear as though it were made of liquid pearl. Every movement you make is slow and intentional, a dance of shadows in the indigo light of the pre-dawn. Outside, the waterwheel groans with a deep wooden resonance. It is a sound you know in your very bones, a rhythmic thrum creak as the heavy oak paddles scoop the dark water of the Millrace. You can hear the water spilling back into the stream, a constant, rushing sigh that drowns out the rest of the world. It is a heavy sound, a wet sound, the sound of the river lending its tireless strength to the task at hand. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over you, feeling the way the entire building breathes in time with the turning wheel. The world is quiet, and the river is steady. You move toward the hopper, your leather apron brushing softly against your woolen tunic. The sound is a gentle rustle, like dry leaves in a late autumn breeze. Within the hopper, the rye grain sits in a golden brown heap, thousands of tiny, hard seeds waiting to be transformed. You reach in and run your fingers through the grain, feeling the cool, polished husks slide between your skin. They are small and firm, a harvest gathered under a different sun, now waiting in the cool of the night. You take a handful and let it trickle back down, the sound like falling rain against the wooden slats. It is a slow, methodical process, and there is no need for haste. Below the hopper, the great millstones are whispering to one another. You can hear the low, abrasive hum of the upper stone the runner, as it rotates just a hair's breadth above the stationary bedstone. It is a sound of immense weight and friction, a grinding song that has not changed in 500 years. As the grain feeds into the eye of the stone, the whisper deepens into a muffled growl, a sign that the rye is being crushed, its heart being laid bare to become the sustenance of the village. The smell of the flour begins to rise now, more potent than before, a warm, toasted scent that fills your lungs and coats the back of your throat with a familiar, dusty sweetness. You adjust the leather strap on the feed mechanism, your fingers moving with practiced ease. The leather is cool and supple, dark with the oils of the mill. With a slight turn of the wooden peg, the flow of grain increases ever so slightly, and the chatter of the damsel, the wooden arm that shakes the hopper, becomes a steady, hypnotic beat. Click-clack, click-clack. It is the heartbeat of the mill, a small, percussive counterpoint to the deep roar of the water and the low moan of the stones. You watch the grain slide down the chute, a miniature landslide of gold moving toward the center of the turning stone. The world is quiet, and the work is measured. You step toward the meal trough, where the fresh flour emerges from the stones. You hold your hand beneath the spout, and the flour falls into your palm, warm and soft as down. It is a startling contrast to the cold night air. The heat of the friction has stayed within the meal, a ghost of the energy required to grind it. You rub the flour between your thumb and forefinger, feeling its coarse, honest texture. It is not the fine, white silk of the high lords, but the sturdy, dark rye of the people, flecked with bran and full of the earth as strength. You bring your hand to your face, breathing in the scent of the warm meal, a smell that promises crusty loaves and full bellies. The candle in its tin holder flickers on a nearby ledge, its amber flame dancing in the slight draft that wanders through the timber joints. The wax has pooled in the bottom of the holder, a translucent lake that catches the golden glow. You watch the flame for a long time, the way it leans and rights itself, casting long, wavering shadows of the massive wooden gears across the ceiling. The gears are giants of oak and hornbeam, their teeth greased with tallow, moving with a slow, irresistible force. You can hear the soft, rhythmic clunk as each tooth finds its notch, a mechanical harmony that speaks of order and endurance. You look out the small window again. The river is a ribbon of moving shadow, silvered where the moonlight strikes the ripples of the Millrace. Perched upon a mossy stone near the sluice gate, the night heron remains motionless. It is a silhouette of stillness against the moving water, its long neck tucked against its breast, waiting for the first light of the sun. You feel a kinship with the bird. You are both watchers of the turning hour, silent observers of the transition from dark to light. A distant owl hoots from the edge of the forest, a soft, hollow sound that carries clearly through the damp air, but it does not disturb the peace of the mill. The weight of your responsibility feels light in this hour. To feed a village is to be part of the seasons, to be a link in a chain that stretches back to the first sowing of the fields. There is no anxiety here, only the steady, unfolding reality of the task. You pick up a wooden shovel, its handle polished by years of use, and begin to move the flour from the trough into a waiting burlap sack. The shovel slides into the flour with a soft, muffled sound, like a spade into dry earth. You lift it slowly, the flour cascading over the edges in a fine mist, and deposit it into the bag. A swish, settle. A swish, settle. The sound is repetitive and calming, a lullaby of labor. The sack begins to fill, its rough fibers expanding under the weight of the rye. You can feel the warmth of the flour through the burlap as you steady the bag with your knee. The dust settles on your eyelashes, on the bridge of your nose, and on the backs of your hands, a fine, pale coating that makes you a part of the mill itself. You are the miller, and the mill is you, and the river is the breath that moves you both. The indigo light outside is beginning to soften, turning to a pale, misty gray, but the sun is still a long way off. For now, there is only the wheel, the stone, and the scent of the rye. The world is quiet, and you are exactly where you need to be. The hour is turning, and the flour is falling, and all is well. You stand at the grain chute in the deepest hours before dawn, when the world beyond these thick stone walls holds its breath and waits. Your fingers rest against the worn oak lever, feeling the steady vibration that travels up through the ancient beams, through the floor beneath your feet, through every timber and post of this mill that has stood beside the river for longer than anyone in the village can remember. The rhythm is constant, unchanging, predictable, the great waterwheel turning outside in the darkness, its wooden paddles dipping into the diverted current with patient, measured groans that echo across the sleeping fields. The millstones whisper their endless conversation somewhere below you, stone sliding against stone in that particular way that speaks of weight and purpose, and the slow transformation of hard grain into something softer, finer, necessary. You can smell the rye as it surrenders to the grinding, that earthy sweetness that fills the air and settles on every surface, dusting the rough-hewn beams overhead, coating the leather of your apron, finding its way into the creases of your palms. The scent is warm despite the cool pre-dawn air that seeps through the small window cut into the eastern wall. Through that window, you can see the river's surface catching fragments of moonlight, turning the water into something silver and slow, something that belongs to this quiet hour when you are the only person awake for miles. Your hand moves to adjust the flow of grain from the hopper, and you listen to the soft whisper of kernels cascading down through the wooden chute, a sound like gentle rain on autumn leaves, steady and soothing. The grains are cool and hard beneath your fingertips when you reach into the sack to check their quality, each kernel a promise of bread, of sustenance, of another season passing in its proper order. You let them slip through your fingers back into the burlap, feeling their weight, their solidity, their patient waiting to become something else. The world is quiet here. The world is measured in these small movements, these careful adjustments, these hours of standing and listening and feeling the mill do its ancient work. The candle in its tin holder flickers on the workbench beside you, casting amber light across surfaces pale with flour dust. You watch the flame bend and straighten, moving to rhythms you cannot quite perceive but trust completely. The light reaches only so far into the mill's interior, leaving the corners in shadow, leaving the upper beams lost in darkness where the wooden gears turn and mesh, where the great shaft runs from the waterwheel through the wall, bringing the river's power inside to be transformed into rotation, into grinding, into this steady hum that you feel in your chest as much as hear with your ears. Outside, the waterwheel continues its patient revolution. You can picture it without looking. The dark wood slick with spray, the paddles cupped to catch the current, the whole massive structure turning with such steadiness that time itself seems to move at the wheel's pace rather than its own. The river rushes through the Millrace, diverted from its natural course years and years ago, channeled and directed and put to purpose. You hear it as a constant presence, a rushing that underlies everything, a sound that fills the spaces between the wheels groaning and the stones whispering, and the occasional creak of timber settling into timber. You move across the flour-dusted floor to check the lower grindstones, your footsteps muffled, leaving faint impressions in the fine powder that covers everything. Kneeling beside the great stones, you place your palm against the upper runner, feeling the heat that builds from friction, from stone meeting stone thousands upon thousands of times in these dark hours. The surface is warm, almost alive, vibrating with steady purpose. You can feel the flour emerging from between the stones, fine and soft, so different from the hard kernels that entered above. This transformation happens in darkness, in the space between stone faces, in the grip of pressure and time and patient turning. A night heron calls from somewhere near the Millrace, its voice harsh and lonely and perfectly suited to this hour when the darkness has weight and presence. You straighten, listening, and through the small window you catch a glimpse of movement. The bird's pale form against the dark water, motionless on the wooden edge of the race, waiting for fish or frogs or whatever small things move in the shallows. The heron is your companion in these hours, another creature of the night and quiet and solitary purpose. The world is quiet here. The world is safe and still. You return to the grain chute, checking the level in the hopper, ensuring the steady flow continues uninterrupted. Your movements are practiced, automatic, born of countless nights standing in this same spot, performing these same tasks, trusting the mill to do what it has always done. The leather of your apron is soft with age and flour dust, comfortable against your chest, familiar as your own skin. You can feel the weight of the village's need here, but it is not a burden. It is simply what is, as natural as the river flowing and the wheel turning, and the stones grinding in their endless, peaceful work. An owl calls from the woods beyond the river, and the sound drifts through the window on air that tastes of water and growing things, and the particular darkness that comes before dawn. You breathe it in, this quiet, this solitude, this moment of standing in amber candlelight while the mill hums and groans and whispers around you. The sacks of finished flour wait along the wall, tied and ready, marked with chalk in your careful hand. Tomorrow the village will come for them, but tomorrow is still far away, beyond this peaceful darkness, beyond these patient hours of grinding and watching, and listening to the river do its work. A single lantern, its flame turned low, casts a gentle amber glow across the millstones, making the lingering dust in the air seem like suspended gold. The river's song is a constant, soothing murmur against the sluice gate, a rhythm older than the mill itself. You run a hand along the smooth, cool wood of the hopper, feeling the faint, familiar vibrations of the waterwheel's tireless turning. It is a lullaby of industry, a quiet hum that seeps into the stones and the beams, promising that all is well and in its rightful order. Here, in the heart of the night-s watch, there is only this deep, contented silence, broken by the water's whisper and the soft sigh of settling flour. In the heart of the night, you are the miller, entrusting the river's steady flow to turn the ancient water wheel, its rhythmic churning a lullaby to the sleeping village. The air is thick with the scent of crushed grain and the earthy perfume of turning stones, a warmth that seeps into your bones, safe and warm in the mill's embrace. Your leather apron, dusted with a fine layer of flour, sifts softly to the wooden floor as you move, the texture of it a whisper against your calloused hands. The water wheel groans its steady song, the wooden paddles splashing through the dark water, a rhythm that has not faltered in centuries. The world is quiet. You feel the vibration of the machinery humming through the worn oak beams, a steady pulse that resonates in the pads of your fingers as you guide the grain chute. The rye flows like a golden river, pouring into the hopper with a soft, steady rush, the sound muffled by the constant turning of the millstones. The stones themselves murmur a gentle, grinding song, their surfaces worn smooth by decades of use, the friction between them releasing a fine, sweet dust that catches the glow of your candle, dancing in the still air. The candle, held in a tin holder, casts long, wavering shadows on the rough-hewn timber beams, the flickering light a dance of amber and indigo in the pre-dawn gloom. Outside the small window, the moon has claimed the river, its surface a path of liquid silver that stretches out into the night. The Millrace, a man-made vein that diverts the river's life-giving force, hums a steady, rushing song, the water clear and cold, its surface catching the moonlight in fleeting, dancing reflections. The night heron, a silent sentinel perched on the Millrace's edge, watches with unblinking eyes, its feathers ruffled by the faintest breeze, a soft rustle that joins the symphony of the mill. The owl's distant hoot echoes through the stillness, a call that is swallowed by the constant turning, the steady grinding, the rhythmic rush of water over stone. You measure the flour, your hands steady as you scoop the coarse powder into linen sacks, the texture of it soft and fine, a whisper against your skin. Each sack is a testament to your labor, a promise of bread for the village, a cycle of life that begins and ends with the turning of the seasons. The sacks are heavy with the weight of your responsibility, but the burden is light, measured in the quiet hours of the night, in the steady rhythm of the mill. The world is quiet, the only sounds the constant turning, the steady grinding, the soft rush of water over stone, the distant call of the night heron, the low hum of the machinery, the soft pour of grain into the hopper, the rustle of flour settling, the creak of wooden gears, the groan of the water wheel, the steady, unchanging song of the mill. The candle burns low, its wax pooling in the tin holder, a small pool of amber that reflects the flickering light, casting dancing shadows on the flour-dusted surfaces. The air is thick with the scent of grain and stone, a warmth that seeps into your bones, safe and warm in the mill's embrace. The night is long, but the work is steady, the rhythm of the mill a constant companion, a lullaby that soothes the soul. You are the miller, the keeper of the rhythm, the custodian of the cycle, the weaver of the village's sustenance, measured in sacks and seasons. In the turning of the wheel and the grinding of the stones, the world is quiet. Outside, the mill race continues its tireless song, a silver ribbon of water cascading over the moss-covered paddles of the great wheel. Each splash is a soft percussion, a liquid heartbeat that echoes through the wooden frame and into the very bones of the mill itself. The wheel turns with ancient patience, each revolution marking time not in moments, but in the slow accumulation of flour, grain by grain, falling like snow into the collection bins below. Through the gaps in the weathered planking, moonlight filters in thin silver bands, illuminating the dust motes that hang suspended in the cool air. They drift lazily, caught in invisible currents, each particle a tiny wanderer in the darkness. The light catches on the brass fittings of the grain hoppers, on the worn iron bands that hold the millstones in their wooden cradles, on the smooth handles of tools hanging from pegs along the wall. In the corner, sacks of wheat lean against one another like tired travelers, their burlap surfaces soft with age and use. The scent of grain is everywhere wholesome and earthy, mixed with the mineral smell of stone dust and the green fragrance of water that seeps through the mill's foundation. It is the smell of sustenance, of patient labor, of bread yet to be baked in ovens throughout the village. A spider has woven her web between two ceiling beams, and in the faint light, the silk strands shimmer like threads of starlight. She rests at the center of her creation, still and content, another night guardian in this place of gentle industry. The web sways almost imperceptibly with each breath of air that moves through the mill, a delicate architecture of patience and precision. The wooden gears overhead mesh with barely a whisper, their teeth worn smooth by countless rotations. Someone long ago carved them with care, shaping each cog to fit perfectly with its neighbor, and now they turn in perpetual harmony, a meditation in oak and iron. The main shaft, thick as a man's waist, rotates with ponderous dignity, its surface polished by the friction of leather drive belts. Below, in the stone foundation, water pools in quiet eddies before continuing its journey downstream. Small fish sometimes find their way into these calm pockets, resting in the darkness beneath the mill, their silver scales catching whatever light penetrates the depths. They are safe here, in this space between the wheel's motion and the stream's flow, suspended in a moment of perfect stillness. The miller's cat, a tabby with white paws, sleeps curled upon a folded tarp near the door. Her whiskers twitch with dreams of summer mice and warm sunlight. Even in sleep, she purrs softly, adding her small vibration to the mill's greater symphony of water and wood and stone. You are awake in the indigo hour, when the world is quiet and the village sleeps, and your feet know the path to the mill without the need for light. The weight of the iron key is cool in your palm, and the lock turns with a soft, oiled click that is swallowed by the river's constant murmur. The door swings inward on leather hinges, and the scent of old wood, damp stone, and the fine, sweet dust of last night's milling greets you like a familiar breath. Inside, the darkness is textured and deep, pooled in the corners where the rough-hewn beams meet the walls. You strike flint to steel, and the candle in its tin holder flares, casting a warm, amber globe that pushes the shadows back just enough, making the great wooden gears and shafts seem to swim into being, patient and still. Your hands perform the nightly ritual, the motions worn smooth by years. The leather apron, stiff with dried flour, is tied around your waist, its weight a comfortable anchor. You move to the great sluice gate lever, its oak shaft polished to a soft sheen by generations of palms. The wood is cool and dense under your grip. You lean your weight into it, and with a deep, subterranean groan of timber and iron, the gate outside lifts. The sound of the river changes instantly. The placid murmur sharpens into a focused rush as the water is drawn into the Millrace, a channel of pure, directed purpose. A moment passes, too, and then the building itself seems to take a long, slow breath. From below, a deep, resonant thump echoes up through the floorboards, followed by the wet, wooden groan of the great water wheel accepting its burden. It begins to turn. The vibration comes up through the soles of your boots, a low, steady hum that travels through the oak beams and into your bones. It is the heartbeat of the mill. You climb the few steps to the milling floor, the candlelight gliding over sacks of rye stacked neatly against the wall, their rough cloth promising grain. The air here is always faintly sweet, tasting of earth and sun, even in the dead of night. You take a wooden scoop and dip it into an open sack. The grain pours in a dry, rustling stream into the hopper, a sound like a gentle, continuous rain on a thatched roof. You watch the first kernels begin their slow, gravity-fed journey down the grain chute towards the waiting stones. The millstones themselves are a conversation of immense patience. The bedstone sleeps immobile, a disk of rough granite, while the runner stone above it begins to rotate, set in motion by the creaking symphony of gears and shafts below. At first, there is only the sound of stone skimming stone, a faint, whispering kiss. Then, as the grain finds its way between them, the whisper deepens into a soft, rhythmic grinding, a crush and a sigh that is felt as much as heard. A fine, pale dust begins to rise, visible in the candle-esque glow, catching the air with the scent of crushed stalks and dry fields. You place your hand on the grain chute, and the vibration there is more specific, a busy, granular tremor as the kernels are fed to their purpose. You turn to the small, square window cut into the thick stone wall, the Millrace Window. It frames a perfect picture of the night. Moonlight, cool and silver, pours onto the black water of the diverted channel, which flows with a smooth, swift purpose, just a hand's breadth from the glass. The water is a rippling sheet of obsidian and mercury, and the sound of it is a steady, shushing rush, a constant white noise that underpins all other sounds. On the far bank, a night heron stands on a single leg, a statue of gray and shadow, its eye a bead of dark glass. It does not move. Beyond, the river proper is a wider expanse of softened darkness, and the far woods are a deeper indigo smudge against a sky that is not yet black, not yet blue. The tasks are simple, repetitive, measured. You adjust the gap between the stones by a hair's breadth, turning the wooden tentering screw a quarter rotation, its threads protesting with a faint, metallic squeak. The pitch of the grinding changes almost imperceptibly, becoming slightly softer, a touch more thorough. You monitor the flow of grain from the hopper, ensuring it is steady and even, a never-ending, gentle pour that is the mill's sole sustenance. The flour begins to spill from the stone-s wooden casing, a pale, soft stream that collects in the waiting trough below. You let it gather for a long while, watching the mound grow, its peak dust-fine and delicate. The smell is warm and wholesome, a scent of future bread, of hearths and full bellies. Your mind settles into the rhythm of the place. The groan of the waterwheel is as regular as a breath, a deep creak. Pause. A splash. A creak. That marks the passage of time not in minutes, but in revolutions. The wooden crown gear overhead turns with a steady, meshing click against its pinion, a sound like a large, slow clock. A leather drive belt, worn supple and gray, slaps gently against its pulley with a soft, rhythmic thump. The flour dust settles on every surface with infinite patience, on the shoulders of sacks, on the rim of the candle holder, on the dark grain of the oak beams, a soft, pale blanket. You brush a hand across the millstone casing, and your fingertips come away powdered white, the texture like the finest ash. The world outside, the Millrace window, does not hurry. The moon drifts on its slow arc. The night heron, eventually, unfolds its other leg and takes a single, precise step into the shallow water, its movement so fluid it seems a part of the current. A muffled call of an owl echoes from the distant woods, a low, questioning note that is absorbed by the vast quiet. The indigo light begins, just barely, to soften at its edges, a hint of charcoal gray seeping into the horizon. It is not dawn, not for a long while yet. It is simply the night deepening, then considering the idea of morning. You pour another scoop of grain into the hopper, listening to the dry cascade. You check the flour in the trough, running a hand through its cool, silken depth. The vibration of the machinery is a constant through your soles, your palm on the oak beam, a reassurance of work being done, of order being maintained. The responsibility you hold is a tangible thing, as weighty and real as a sack of rye. But here, in the candle glow and the moon's silver dark, it does not feel like a burden. It feels like the turning of the wheel, like the flow of the water, like the slow, sure grinding of stone on stone, a peaceful, perpetual motion. You are the miller. The village sleeps, safe and warm, and the stones whisper, and the river turns the wheel, and the world is quiet. You are tucked safely behind the thick, curving wall of the mill, the air around you thick with the scent of crushed grain and the soft, unceasing hum of the ancient waterwheel outside. The night is deep, the world is quiet, and the only sounds that reach your ears are the rhythmical groans of the wheel as it turns, the whisper of stone against stone, and the steady rush of the river water being diverted through the millrace. You stand, steady and sure, your hands resting lightly on the grain chute, feeling the vibrations of the machinery humming through the worn oak beams, the texture of the wood rough and familiar beneath your fingers. The candle in its tin holder flickers gently, casting warm amber light over the flour-dusted surfaces, the glow reflecting off the coarse grindstones, their surfaces worn smooth by years of use. You reach down, your fingers brushing against the rough burlap of the grain sack, the fibers coarse and scratchy against your skin. You lift the sack, feeling its weight, the grain shifting slightly inside, and you tip it gently into the hopper. The grain pours out in a steady stream, the sound soft and rhythmic, like a gentle rain. The grindstones below begin to turn, the sound of their grinding growing slightly louder, the vibrations increasing in intensity. But you remain calm, your hands steady, your breath even. The night heron calls softly in the distance, its cry echoing across the moonlit river, the surface of the water silvered by the pale light. The air is cool, the night deep, but you are safe and warm inside the mill, the heat from the grindstones radiating outwards, the scent of the grain strong and comforting. You watch as the flour begins to pour out of the millstones, the stream fine and steady, the texture soft and powdery. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the flour, the texture fine and silky against your skin. You gather a small handful, feeling the weight of it, the softness of it, before letting it slip through your fingers, the grains falling back to the stone below, the sound soft and quiet. You turn, your steps slow and measured, the creak of the wooden floorboards under your feet a familiar sound, a comforting sound. You move to the sacks of flour, their rough burlap surfaces dusted with a fine layer of white, the scent of the grain strong and comforting. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the surface, the texture rough and coarse under your touch. You lift the sack, feeling its weight, the flour shifting slightly inside, and you begin to tie it closed, the twine rough and scratchy against your fingers. The night is deep, the world is quiet, and you are content, your hands busy with the familiar tasks, the rhythm of the mill a comforting presence. The waterwheel turns, the grindstones grind, the river rushes, and the night heron calls, its cry echoing across the moonlit river. You are the miller, the keeper of the grain, the provider for the village, and in the quiet of the night, you find peace in the steady, unchanging rhythm of your work. You turn back to the grindstones, the stream of flour still pouring out, the texture fine and silky. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the surface, the texture soft and powdery. You gather a small handful, feeling the weight of it, the softness of it, before letting it slip through your fingers, the grains falling back to the stone below, the sound soft and quiet. You move to the hopper, the grain still pouring out, the sound soft and rhythmic. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the surface, the texture rough and coarse. You gather a small handful, feeling the weight of it, the roughness of it, before letting it slip through your fingers, the grains falling back to the hopper below, the sound soft and quiet. The night is deep, the world is quiet, and you are content, your hands busy with the familiar tasks, the rhythm of the mill a comforting presence. The waterwheel turns, the grindstones grind, the river rushes, and the night heron calls, its cry echoing across the moonlit river. You are the miller, the keeper of the grain, the provider for the village, and in the quiet of the night, you find peace in the steady, unchanging rhythm of your work. You turn, your steps slow and measured, the creak of the wooden floorboards under your feet a familiar sound, a comforting sound. You move to the sacks of grain, their rough burlap surfaces dusted with a fine layer of white, the scent of the grain strong and comforting. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the surface, the texture rough and coarse under your touch. You lift the sack, feeling its weight, the grain shifting slightly inside, and you begin to pour it into the hopper, the grain falling in a steady stream, the sound soft and rhythmic. The night is deep, the world is quiet, and you are content, your hands busy with the familiar tasks, the rhythm of the mill a comforting presence. The waterwheel turns, the grindstones grind, the river rushes, and the night heron calls, its cry echoing across the moonlit river. You are the miller, the keeper of the grain, the provider for the village, and in the quiet of the night, you find peace in the steady, unchanging rhythm of your work. The air is cool, the night deep, but you are safe and warm inside the mill, the heat from the grindstones radiating outwards, the scent of the grain strong and comforting. The candle in its tin holder flickers gently, casting warm amber light over the flour-dusted surfaces, the glow reflecting off the coarse grindstones, their surfaces worn smooth by years of use. The night is deep, the world is quiet, and you are content, your hands busy with the familiar tasks, the rhythm of the mill a comforting presence. The waterwheel turns, the grindstones grind, the river rushes, and the night heron calls, its cry echoing across the moonlit river. You are the miller, the keeper of the grain, the provider for the village, and in the quiet of the night, you find peace in the steady, unchanging rhythm of your work. Warm flour dust lights the air, an owl watches, candles gutter, and your